headlines. North Korea vows harsh retaliation as South Korea and the U.S. are set to start their annual war games next week. A recent poll shows the Japanese public thinks their government should show remorse for Japan's historical wrongdoings in a cabinet statement coming out this summer. Tired of having to charge your smart gadgets many times a day? We'll show you some smart ways to charge your smart devices. Hello and welcome to ARIRANG News. Thanks for tuning in. Live from Seoul, I am Kang Tae-ri. Tensions are brewing ahead of an annual South Korea-U.S. military exercise set to start next week. More than 200,000 troops are participating in the two-week-long computerized command post exercise called Key Resolve and the field training drills named Foal Eagle that runs through April. Although Seoul and Washington maintain that these drills are defensive and non-provocative in nature, North Korea says they are a rehearsal for an invasion with nuclear weapons and has issued threats of a harsh retaliation. There is resistance coming from China and Russia when it comes to installing Washington's long-range radar missile defense system in South Korea. And despite rumors of plans to make the radar range shorter, the Korean government says those rumors are not true. Our Connolly has more.
The South Korean government has come out to respond to the latest claims on the controversial American missile defense system. Despite earlier media reports that the missile shield known as THAAD is being planned with a shorter range radar of about 600 kilometers instead of a range up to 2,000 kilometers, Seoul's defense ministry said that no decision has been made in regards to the system. On Tuesday, Defense Ministry spokesperson Kim Min-seok added that there's no way for the Korean government to know about the progress made on THAAD, especially when the U.S. has not even formally asked to deploy the system in Seoul. Reports on Monday quoted an unnamed government source in Seoul saying that the U.S. was planning to make changes to its THAAD system. THAAD, which is short for Terminal High Altitude Area Defense, is an anti-ballistic missile system designed to shoot down missiles in their terminal phase. Washington had hopes of deploying the system here in Seoul to counter military advances, not only from China, but also from Iran and North Korea. Both Seoul and Beijing have expressed reluctance about having the system in South Korea, saying it could threaten regional peace. Connie Lee, ARIRANG News.
More evidence has emerged about the young Korean man who went missing last month near the Turkish border during a meeting of the Parliamentary Intelligence Committee. Lawmakers quoted an official at the National Intelligence Service as saying the 18-year-old, identified by his last name Kim, is in fact receiving training from Islamic State. Kim had posted tweets in English as well as Arabic last October inquiring how he could join the militant group. He was last seen on January 10th, leaving a hotel on the Turkey-Syria border. Japan's royal family emphasized the need to uphold the country's pacifist constitution. This is not the first time the royal family is making such remarks, and experts say it's likely to ignite a conflict with the right-wing cabinet. Our Connie Kim has more on this story.
Japan's royal family is ramping up pressure on the administration of Prime Minister Shinzo Abe to uphold the country's pacifist constitution as Abe prepares to release a statement in August marking the 70th anniversary of Japan's surrender in World War II. In a press conference this week marking his birthday, Crown Prince Naruhito emphasized the need to look back humbly on the past.
I think that it is important to correctly pass on the tragic experiences and history Japan pursued from the generation which experienced the war to those without direct knowledge.
Prince Naruhito went on to underline the importance of upholding the constitution. His position is in stark contrast to Abe's, who wants to revise a pacifist constitution and give the country the right to exercise its right to collective self-defense, allowing the Japanese military to aid allies under attack.
After going through a disastrous war, Japan is maintaining peace and prosperity under the Constitution.
It's not the first time the Japanese royal family has called for preserving the current constitution. Back in December, Japan's emperor said the country should not forget about the precious lives that were sacrificed during wartime.
During World War II, more than 3 million people died. We shall not put their lives to waste.
Analysts say, however, that a conflict is likely as a right-wing cabinet, which decided last July to change the interpretation of the constitution, is unlikely to budge on the issue. The Japanese government plans to finalize items on the agenda for the constitutional revision no later than this fall. Connie Kim, ARIRANG News.
And now let's get a pulse check on the Japanese public regarding Japan's stance on its wartime history. A recent poll shows that they think their government should show remorse for Japan's historical wrongdoing in a cabinet statement coming out this summer. Our Hwang Sung-hee tells us more.
The majority of the Japanese public says Prime Minister Shinzo Abe should uphold the apology for Japan's wartime atrocities expressed by his predecessors. A poll conducted by the Sankei Shimbun and Fuji News Network showed more than half of the respondents think a forthcoming statement by Abe should retain words like aggression, remorse, and apology used in the Murayama statement. Abe is set to release a statement this summer to commemorate the 70th anniversary of the end of World War II. The Japanese leader has hinted at moving away from the landmark apology issued in 1995 by then Prime Minister Tomichi Murayama, saying he wants the statement to reflect his government's position. But polls conducted by other Japanese media outlets, including the Asahi Shimbun, NHK, and Yomiuri Shimbun, have all produced similar results, that the Abe statement should carry words of remorse and apology over Japan's wartime role. So will the public sentiment be enough to sway the Japanese leader?
Then we're going to see a struggle between Shinzo Abe, the politician, who does what the majority want him to do, versus Shinzo Abe, the principled, committed defender of a proud Japan that has no more apologies for its past.
If Abe retains the expressions of remorse, experts say Korea could take it as a signal of his sincerity and an occasion to move forward in its current frosty relations with Japan. The bigger question is whether the Korean public will be ready to accept Abe's gestures. Experts say the government in Seoul will have to tread carefully to see if they have public support and move slowly on the issue. Hwang Sung-hee, ARIRANG News.
And in the meantime, Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe's speech at the U.S. Congress has yet to be approved. U.S. State Department spokesperson Jen Psaki said Monday local time that although Washington welcomes Abe's visit, Congress and the administration will need to discuss Abe's wish to speak before Congress. Korean organizations in the U.S. have already started protesting Abe's possible speech. They say someone who denies his country's wartime wrongdoing, such as the sexual enslavement of Korean women, should not be given such an opportunity. If Abe does get to speak, he would be the first Japanese prime minister to speak before Congress in more than 5 decades. Televisions made by Korean tech giants Samsung and LG are holding a majority of market shares in the U.S. as well as Europe. But when it comes to smartphones, it's quite a different story now. Our Song Ji-sun tells us more.
Korea's high-tech TVs are solidifying their lead in the global flat-screen TV market. In Europe, the combined flat TV market share of Samsung and LG Electronics in 2014 topped 60%, meaning 3 out of 5 European customers bought Korean-made flat-screen TVs last year. While LG was at 3rd place in the U.S. market last year, behind local producer Vizio, the two Korean tech giants' combined market share still amounted to nearly half. The trend is backed by the strong preferences of U.S. customers. This year's Consumer Loyalty Engagement Index compiled by the U.S.-based Brand Keys shows Samsung is the top TV producer with the highest brand loyalty for the 4th consecutive year. The firm surveyed over 36,000 American consumers on how willing they are to purchase products from the same brand. The Korean tech giants may be doing well in the flat TV market, but they're struggling to regain their grip on the smartphone segment. In the same poll, Apple kept its lead in the smartphone and laptop categories for the second year in a row, a title once claimed by Samsung back in 2013. Strategy analysts' fourth quarter figures show that Apple accounted for some 49% of global smartphone sales, with its large-screen iPhone 6 models dominating the premium smartphone sector, while Samsung slumped to just 17%. 송지선, 아리랑 뉴스.
Apple stock has set yet another closing record at $133 per share, giving the iPhone maker the highest ever market capitalization of any company. Apple's stock price surged 2.7% on Monday. Apple's market cap now stands at almost $775 billion, over 4 times larger than that of Samsung Electronics. This next report is for those who are constantly looking for an outlet to recharge their smartphones. Our Shin Se-min offers some quick and easy tips to help you extend your phone's battery life.
We make calls, text, take photos, watch videos, play games. The list goes on. Smartphones have permeated every part of our daily routine. But for some reason, they can't seem to get through the day on a single charge.
3번이요.
저는 2번. 하루에 배터리를 스페어 하나 사서 3개 쓰고 있습니다.
한 2-3번 정도 충전하고 있어요.
하루에 3-4번 이상 충전기에 꽂고 충전하는 편이에요.
Korea's Electric Technology Research Institute recently released a guidebook pinpointing some of the ways you can prolong your phone's battery life.
One thing you can do is to keep your phone at room temperature. Your lithium-ion-based batteries rely on electrically charged atoms, and they work the best at warm temperatures. So if you're out as the temperature drops, it is likely that your smartphone battery will drain more quickly. But if you must stay out and still want to keep that last inch of your battery life, just cover it up with a smartphone case or simply put it in a pocket.
Another tip, never let it drop to 0. Unlike the nickel-based batteries in older phones, the batteries in smartphones are designed to be charged frequently. So don't wait until your battery dies. Even if it's fully charged, it's better to keep the phone plugged in for another 2 hours so the energy is distributed to every part of the battery. Also, switch off the vibrate function and don't turn your phone on and off. Dim the screen and disable the Wi-Fi and Bluetooth functions whenever possible. Kill applications if you're not using them and cut back on unnecessary push notifications. Another Facebook update can wait. And you can always track your battery use through apps that'll help show you how to save energy and stay charged. Shin Se-min, ARIRANG News.
An increasing number of global companies are pulling their factories out of China, and this is raising concerns that this trend could hurt China's manufacturing industry. With competition rising from other Asian economies, some say China has lost its position as the go-to place for global firms. Our Kim Min-ji reports.
Japanese watchmaker Citizen recently shut down its factory in Guangzhou. More than 1,000 employees are up in arms due to the sudden layoff, but the company says it's part of its restructuring plans. Citizen isn't the only one. U.S. software giant Microsoft has also shut down its Nokia factory in Guangzhou and plans to open a new factory in Vietnam. And with its Beijing factory also slated to close, some 9,000 employees are expected to lose their jobs. Industry watchers estimate that before the Chinese New Year, more than 100 large factories, including ones run by Sharp and Panasonic, were shuttered in the city of Dongguan, one of the country's main manufacturing hubs. So what has triggered the mass exodus? Many manufacturing companies entered China 2 decades ago because of cheap land and labor costs, but that's not the case now. Also, the Chinese market did not expand as fast as companies had expected.
What's more is that countries in Southeast Asia, such as India and Vietnam, are stepping up efforts to lure foreign companies. The U.S., Japan, and Europe are also offering incentives, such as tax cuts and investment support, to encourage homegrown companies to come back. The trend has raised concerns that China's manufacturing industry, once driven by cheap labor, may be heading for a crisis. The official Purchasing Managers Index stood at 49.8 in January, falling below 50 for the first time in more than 2 years, signaling a contraction. Kim Min-ji, ARIRANG News.
Korea's conglomerates are widely known to dominate large portions of the Korean economy. So to give smaller companies a better shot in the marketplace, this is what a government agency has done. Today, the Korean Commission for Corporate Partnership renewed the designations for 49 items as off-limits to large conglomerates and added 5 new things to the list. The list includes stationery retailers and grocery and beverage wholesalers, as well as certain types of rice cakes. This measure is not binding, though. It only means large firms are advised not to enter the market and not to expand existing businesses in those areas over the next 3 years. Competition in the job market is growing fears in Korea for those fresh out of college. To be rewarded for their high level of education, many tend to spend more time looking for the perfect job. But the older the age of new applicants, the more hesitant employers are to hire them. Our Kwon-soo tells us more.
It's graduation season in Korea. As a country where around 2/3 of people have a university degree, it's no wonder that it's tough for these fresh-faced graduates to land their dream job.
It has become more difficult to find a job in your field of interest.
It's hard. I'm interested in opening a startup, but I'm afraid as it isn't easy. But then again, it's also hard to apply for a job.
Despite the rosy outlook on the gradual rise in the number of people in work, it's a different story for young people looking to get their foot in the door at a good company.
Due to a limited number of quality jobs, people work part-time jobs until they find a high-quality workplace, or they just continue to search for jobs.
That's why the age of people who were never in the workforce before keeps rising. 1/3 of applicants at some 380 companies last year were in their 30s. Persistently striving for your goal is not a bad thing. That is, if age wasn't a consideration when it comes to getting hired. A job searching portal says almost 60% of those responsible for hiring are reluctant to take on new people they consider old, men over 32 and women over 30. According to the study, more than half of Korean employees feel uncomfortable working with new people in those age groups, mainly because of Korea's hierarchical office system, which usually demands that junior employees strictly obey their seniors. But as Korean society also strictly values respect for the elderly, many senior employees say it's awkward to give orders to their older juniors. Kwon-soo, ARIRANG News.
The international coalition led by the United States has launched a fresh round of airstrikes against Islamic State militants. To tell us more, Paul Lee is joining us from the News Center. Paul, these attacks were fired on IS target in the heart of Iraq and Syria. What's prompted this latest military offensive?
Well, all signs are indicating a major push against this extremist group. Leading up to this point, we heard reports of France deploying its major aircraft carrier to the Persian Gulf and the Iraqi army mobilizing to retake Iraq's second largest city of Mosul. Coalition warplanes staged 11 aerial bombings over the last 2 days, 6 of which hit tactical IS units near the Syrian border town of Kobani. And in Iraq, IS fighting positions, vehicles, and checkpoints were also hit near 5 major cities. The military offensive comes as U.S. Defense Secretary Ash Carter arrived in Kuwait on Monday to speak on the fight against Islamic State.
Achieving the lasting defeat of ISIL will require a combined diplomatic and military effort. That was abundantly confirmed by our discussion and was affirmed, or rather affirms, the bringing together of this unique grouping of political and military leaders.
Carter is also slated to hold talks with U.S. military commanders and other diplomats. They include General Lloyd Austin, the head of U.S. forces in the Middle East, as well as U.S. ambassadors to countries including Saudi Arabia and Jordan.
And shifting to France now, the government has confiscated the passports of 6 French nationals who are suspected of joining radical Islamist groups in Syria. Paul, this comes after January's deadly terror attacks. Give us the details on this latest move by Paris.
Well, the French Interior Minister made the announcement on Monday. He said the group of suspected jihadists was stopped when it was determined that their trip was imminent. He also said the government was processing 40 more travel bans, which would be good for at least 6 months. The seizure is the first adoption of an anti-terrorism measure passed in November that targets violent extremists.
We wanted this measure because if French people leave to commit acts of violence in Iraq and Syria, upon their return they represent an even greater danger for the national territory and risk committing wide-scale terrorist attacks motivated only by an instinct of violence because of acts of violence and acts they could have committed in the terrorist field of action.
Now, similar measures are in place in the UK and Germany. Australia's Prime Minister Tony Abbott on Monday also announced tough new anti-terror measures that would allow for revoking citizenship for dual nationals found to be involved in terrorist acts.
And let's turn to the United States now. Turn back to the United States. President Barack Obama is warning of a looming shutdown of the country's Department of Homeland Security, which is set to run out of funds this Friday. What's behind this latest budget crisis?
Well, it's business as usual on Capitol Hill. An extended partisan deadlock has led to this standoff. The Democrats want to fund the department, but the Republicans say they won't budge until there's tougher restrictions on illegal immigrants. Speaking before a meeting of state governors at the White House, Obama said the partial shutdown would have a direct impact on America's national security and economy. He also said it would leave more than 100,000 government personnel without their paychecks.
And I will keep on urging Congress to move past some of the habits of manufactured crises and self-inflicted wounds that have so often bogged us down over the last 5 years. We've got one example of that right now. Unless Congress acts, 1 week from now, more than 100,000 DHS employees, Border Patrol, port inspectors, TSA agents will show up to work without getting paid.
Homeland Security appropriations bill has been stuck in the Senate after House Republicans attached amendments that would strip funding from Obama's executive orders focused on the country's immigration reforms. It's the third time the bill has been blocked in the Senate this month.
And heading back to Europe, Greece has submitted a list of proposed reforms to its Eurozone partners as it's facing the real threat of bankruptcy at the end of this week. Talk about a last-minute move by Athens, Paul.
That's right. And just hours ago, there were reports that Greece was going to miss a Monday deadline to submit those economic reforms without reason. But the European Commission confirmed that they did receive it on time and will table it for discussion on Tuesday. The new proposals reportedly focus on curbing tax evasion, tackling corruption, and extending help to Greece stuck in a, quote, humanitarian crisis deepened by years of austerity. While keeping the Greek economy from risk of default, the move is also being seen as a U-turn from Prime Minister Alexis Tsipras' election pledge to leave the EU debt program. Charity?
All right, Paul, let's leave it there for now. Thank you so much for those stories, and we'll see you again in just about 2 hours.
Hello and welcome. I'm Kim Bo-kyung with your weather forecast. Most of the yellow dust that blanketed the nation yesterday has moved out, but levels still remain in the bad range in some places, so it is advised that you wear a mask that is specifically made to keep out the dust when heading outdoors. Besides that, at the moment it is mostly clear skies nationwide, but it's shaping up to be a different story for tomorrow as snow or showers are set to begin down south in the evening before spreading to other places, including Seoul and Gangwon province. So up to 30 millimeters of rainfall is expected to drop in Jeju, while about 5 will drop here in the capital, and it looks like all of this should gradually clear up by early Thursday morning. Besides that, seasonal average numbers will stick around for a while, but do keep in mind that another round of showers is in store for the weekend. On to tomorrow's readings. Seoul will start off the morning at -1 before reaching 10 in the afternoon. Gwangju and Busan will reach 11. Meanwhile, Daejeon and Jeju will also reach up to 11. Dokdo hits 7. Those are the updates we're following at this hour, and I'll be back with more after 10.
Thank you very much, Po-kyung, and that does it for this edition of ARIRANG News. Thanks for watching.